The first scream echoed before sunrise, cutting through the cold morning air of Rome sharp, sudden then vanishing almost as quickly as it came. By the time anyone reached the source, there was nothing left but silence and a dark stain slowly spreading across the stone. The Roman Forum was already awake, as it always was, with merchants whispering beneath heavy cloaks, priests moving like shadows between temples, and citizens gathering in uneasy clusters, their voices low and their eyes restless, because in this place, at the very heart of Rome, no one truly felt safe. This was not simply a center of trade or politics, but a place where lives were decided in public, where a single accusation could rise from the crowd like a spark and become a fire that consumed everything. A man could arrive here respected, admired, even powerful, and leave disgraced, exiled, or not leave at all. Beneath towering temples and worn marble, something darker pulsed through the Forum: power, fear, control, and the same ground that hosted celebrations of victory could by evening witness humiliation, violence, or death. Those who stood in the crowd knew it, watching carefully and listening closely, because today it might be someone else standing accused before the people, but tomorrow it could be them. In Rome, justice was not hidden behind walls, but stood exposed, raw and unpredictable in the open air of the Forum, and once you stepped into it, there was no escaping what followed. To an outsider, the Forum might have appeared as a symbol of order and civilization, but beneath that surface, it functioned as something far more volatile. The Forum was the stage upon which the Roman Republic revealed its most dangerous nature. Every stone carried the memory of conflict, every structure witnessed ambition, and every gathering crowd held the potential for chaos. Daily life began early. Before the sun fully rose, traders would already be arranging their goods, their voices low as they negotiated prices with early customers. Farmers from nearby regions brought produce into the city, hoping to secure fair deals before the market grew crowded. Citizens arrived steadily, some seeking business opportunities, others drawn by the promise of news, debate, or spectacle. Because in Rome, the Forum was more than a place to conduct trade. It was where information spread. Rumors traveled faster than official announcements. A whisper in one corner could become a roar by midday. And in a society built on reputation, rumors could destroy lives just as effectively as any weapon. Political activity dominated the Forum's atmosphere. Magistrates and officials moved through the crowds with guarded expressions, aware that every action was being observed. Public speeches were delivered from elevated platforms, where orators attempted to sway the opinions of the people. These speeches were not calm discussions. They were performances carefully crafted to stir emotion, provoke anger, or inspire loyalty. A skilled speaker could turn a crowd into a weapon. And once that crowd was stirred, it could become unpredictable, even violent. Trials were among the most intense events held in the Forum. Unlike modern courts, these proceedings unfolded in full view of the public. There were no barriers separating the accused from the crowd. No controlled environment to ensure fairness. Instead, everything depended on persuasion, influence, and the shifting mood of those watching. An accused man stood exposed, surrounded by citizens who might cheer his defense or demand his punishment. For those without such advantages, the Forum could feel less like a place of justice and more like a trap. And when verdicts were delivered, the consequences were immediate and severe. Exile stripped a person of their identity, forcing them to leave everything behind. Confiscation of property reduced families to poverty. In the most extreme cases, execution followed swiftly, often serving as a public demonstration of the Republic's authority. These punishments were not hidden from view. They were meant to be seen, to send a message to anyone who might challenge the system. Yet the Forum was not only a place of fear, it was also a space of celebration. Victorious generals returned from campaigns, and passed through the Forum in grand triumphs. Crowds gathered to witness the spectacle, cheering as soldiers marched in formation, carrying spoils of war. Captured enemies were displayed as symbols of Rome's dominance. For a moment, the Forum transformed into a place of unity and pride. But even these celebrations carried a darker undertone. The same crowd that cheered a general success could later turn against him if fortunes changed. Popularity in Rome was fragile, dependent on constant success and public approval. A single failure could erase years of achievement. Religion added another layer to the Forum's complexity. Temples dedicated to the gods stood among the political buildings, reinforcing the belief that divine will guided the Republic. Rituals were performed before important decisions, seeking approval from higher powers. But these practices were not always sincere. Religious interpretations could be manipulated to serve political purposes. An unfavorable omen could delay proceedings, while a favorable one could justify controversial actions. In this way, religion became intertwined with power, used as both a tool of control and a source of legitimacy. Violence, though not constant, was never far from the surface. Political rivalries often extended beyond speeches and debates, leading to physical confrontations. Groups loyal to different leaders clashed in the streets, turning parts of the Forum into battlegrounds. Stones were thrown, weapons drawn, and blood spilled. These incidents revealed how fragile the Republic's order truly was. Beneath the appearance of law and structure lay a society capable of descending into chaos with little warning. As Rome expanded its influence, the pressures on the Forum increased. Wealth from conquered territories flowed into the city, intensifying competition among elites. Ambitious individuals sought greater power, using the Forum as their platform. Every speech, every trial, every public appearance became part of a larger struggle for dominance. The stakes grew higher, and the consequences of failure became more severe. Over time, the Forum began to reflect the deeper problems within Roman society. Inequality widened, tensions increased, and trust eroded. Citizens grew suspicious of one another, aware that alliances could shift at any moment. The Forum, once a symbol of unity, became a place where divisions were exposed and amplified. And as these divisions deepened, the Republic itself began to weaken. The Forum did not cause Rome's problems, but it revealed them in their most intense form. It was where ambition collided with reality, where ideals were tested against human nature. And in that collision, something began to break. As the Republic aged, the Roman Forum grew louder, but less stable. What had once been a place of controlled debate and structured authority began to transform into something far more volatile. The crowds became larger, more restless, more easily swayed. Political leaders no longer spoke simply to inform or persuade. They spoke to dominate. Every word was sharpened, every pause calculated, every accusation designed to ignite something dangerous within the people listening. The Forum became less about law, and more about survival. The balance that had once defined Roman governance began to fracture under the weight of ambition. Powerful figures learned quickly that controlling the Forum meant controlling Rome itself. If you could win the crowd, you could bend the Republic to your will. And so, the space filled not just with citizens, but with followers, loyal groups who would cheer, shout, and even fight on behalf of those they supported. These were not passive audiences. They were weapons. Political violence, once rare, became disturbingly common. Organized groups clashed in the streets surrounding the Forum, their confrontations spilling into the very heart of Roman public life. Meetings were disrupted. Speeches were drowned out by shouting or broken apart by force. At times it became nearly impossible to tell where politics ended and violence began. The Forum, once a symbol of civic order, began to resemble a battlefield without armies. One of the most unsettling aspects of this transformation was how quickly it became normal. Citizens adapted to the chaos. They learned to read the tension in the air, to recognize when a gathering might turn violent. Some came prepared, carrying concealed weapons beneath their clothing. Others avoided certain areas altogether, choosing safety over participation. But many remained, drawn by the same force that had always defined the Forum, the need to witness, to belong, to be part of Rome's unfolding story, no matter how dangerous it became. Public trials, already intense, grew even more unpredictable. The line between justice and vengeance blurred until it was almost invisible. Accusations were no longer just legal arguments. They were tools of political destruction. A skilled accuser could turn the crowd against a defendant before evidence was even presented. The outcome often depended less on truth and more on perception. And perception could be manipulated. In this environment, fear became a constant presence. Not the sudden sharp fear of immediate danger, but a slower, heavier kind that settled into the minds of those who lived and worked around the Forum. It was the fear of being watched, judged, and potentially targeted. Because anyone could become an enemy. A careless word, a misunderstood action, or a poorly timed association could draw unwanted attention. And once attention turned hostile, there were few ways to escape it. The Forum amplified everything. Praise became adoration. Criticism became hatred. Suspicion became accusation. It was a place where emotions did not remain contained. They spread, multiplied, and consumed. Leaders who understood this could rise rapidly, gaining influence through carefully orchestrated appearances and speeches. But the same forces that lifted them could just as easily destroy them. Popularity in the Forum was never stable. It shifted constantly, responding to rumors, events, and the unpredictable mood of the crowd. One day, a man could stand at the center of the Forum, surrounded by supporters, his voice carrying confidence and authority. The next, he could be abandoned, his allies gone, his reputation shattered. And in the silence that followed, the realization would come too late. Rome had turned against him. The physical space of the Forum began to reflect these changes. Buildings that once symbolized unity and tradition became associated with conflict and division. The open areas that hosted gatherings now carried memories of violence. Even the air seemed different, heavier, charged with tension. The Forum was no longer just a place people visited. It was a place they endured. As conflicts within the Republic intensified, the Forum became a focal point for larger struggles. Rival factions used it to demonstrate strength, gathering supporters in visible displays of power. These gatherings were not peaceful assemblies. They were warnings. Messages sent to opponents, showing that one side had more people, more influence, more control. And sometimes, these displays escalated into direct confrontation. The Republic's institutions struggled to maintain authority in this environment. Laws were passed, but not always respected. Decisions were made, but not always enforced. The gap between official power and real control widened. And in that gap, chaos grew. The Forum exposed this weakness more clearly than any other place in Rome. It showed that the Republic's stability depended not just on laws and structures, but on the willingness of its people to respect them. When that willingness began to fade, the system itself started to unravel. There were moments when it seemed as though order might be restored. Speeches calling for unity were delivered. Reforms were proposed. Temporary calm would settle over the Forum, giving the illusion that the worst had passed. But beneath that calm, the same tensions remained, waiting for the next spark. And the sparks came often. A controversial decision, a disputed election, a powerful figure returning from military success. Each event added pressure, pushing the system closer to its limits. The Forum absorbed all of it, becoming a space where the Republic's internal struggles played out in full view. It was here that the transformation became undeniable. The Forum was no longer just the center of public life. It had become the center of public conflict. The place where Rome confronted itself and found something it could no longer control. When the voices finally faded and the crowds dispersed, the Forum did not return to peace. It never truly did. Even in silence, it held the weight of everything that had happened there. Every accusation, every verdict, every moment of violence lingered, pressed into the stone beneath countless footsteps. The Roman Forum had been built as the heart of the Republic, a place where citizens could gather, speak, and shape their future. But over time, it revealed something far more unsettling. It showed how fragile that system really was, because the danger was never just the individuals who stood within it. It was the system itself, one that allowed power to concentrate, fear to spread, and ambition to override restraint. The Forum did not fall in a single moment. It changed gradually, almost invisibly, as each act of manipulation, each outburst of violence, and each compromise of principle weakened the structure that held it together. By the time the transformation was complete, it was already too late. The Republic still stood, but its foundation had shifted, and the Forum, once a symbol of unity, had become a reminder of division. A place where Rome's greatest strengths, its people, its voice, its openness, had turned against it. Long after the empire rose from the ashes of the Republic, the Forum remained, silent, broken, watching, because even in ruin, it tells the same story, that the fall of Rome did not begin with invasion, but with what happened inside its own heart.